Good morning, Shavuot Tov. Welcome to our Parsha class, the Parsha of Shlach. In the Good Chumash, we are on page 940, 941. We are chapter 13 of the book of Bamidbar, book of Numbers, the fourth book of the Torah. Today's morning Parsha class is going to be dedicated in memory of Eliezer ben Shaul, who is the grandfather of Dan Fertel. Yartzai is today, I believe. So today's Torah study will be in his memory. Thank you, Dan. So, it's Parsha of Shlach. It's an amazing Parsha. The story of the spies. The first, I would say 2/3 of the Parsha talk about the story of the spies. We also have the special mitzvah of challah taking, not just the mitzvah of sweet, braided bread, as you know as challah, but also the mitzvah of separating a portion of dough from every batter, which is what the mitzvah of challah is all about. And then we also have some other ideas and offerings, and we conclude with someone who has desecrated the Shabbat, what happened to him. And the last part of the Parsha is talking about the beautiful mitzvah of tzitzis, putting the four strings on the four-cornered garment. That's the conclusion of the Parsha. But the bulk of the Parsha really talks about the story of the spies. And we have spoken about the story of the spies in previous years. What is the significance of it? How did they make this mistake? Obviously, what is the important lesson that we can learn from the spies? An obvious question that we have on the story of the spies is, what exactly did they do wrong? Right? What exactly did they do wrong? Just to recap a little bit about the story of the spies, we're talking now just over a year after the exodus of Egypt. Last week we spoke about the first celebration of Passover, the first anniversary of Pesach. And then 5 weeks later, on the 20th of Iyar, in last week's Parsha, the Jewish people travel for the first time. They leave Mount Sinai, which they were there for almost a year. And they travel to the Midbar of Paran, which is like the southern eastern tip of Jerusalem, of Israel, I should say. And that's where they, the plan is, as it was the original plan, to enter into the land of Israel through, before the 40-year decree going into Israel. So this week's Parsha opens up where the Jewish people request from Moshe, and they say, we want to send spies. If you have the Good Chumash, and you look on page 1118, not numbered, but it's the page after 1117. That's the way to know. You have a little map, a little diagram to see the journeys of the Jewish people. So you see, if you follow arrow number 1, that's the first journey, right? After they were at Mount Sinai for a year, they travel to where? They travel north. They're going to Israel. And you see where it says the desert of Paran. The last word, the last week's Parsha Baloscha, is that they traveled. The people departed from Chatzeros and they camped in the desert of Paran. Right? You see where Chatzeros is, right near Mount Sinai. They traveled basically north towards Israel, where it says Canaan. That's where Israel is. And it was surrounded by some nations, by Edom, Mount Seir, by Moab, by Ammon. But they went from the south, going up north, not far from where Beersheba is. And that is where they initially planned to enter into the land of Israel. So now the Jewish people are stationed in Midbar Paran, the desert of Paran, and they're sending spies to scout out the land, find out exactly the weak points, the strong points, and make a strategy how to conquer the land of Israel. We learn that from one little word in the Torah where it says Shlach lecha. send for yourself. In other words, God says, I don't need spies. I don't need, we could do this on our own. We could handle this without spies and without all that strategy. But if you're interested, if the Jewish people want to, I give them permission. They want to send spies, let them send spies. And they send 12, which seem to be leaders of the Jewish people, righteous people at the time. And they go and they scout out the land. And Moshe gives them very specific instructions of what to look for, what type of fortified cities do they have, what type of people there, what type of, it gives them lots of detail. And they return, and they return with seemingly a negative report. The Jewish people get all angry or upset or sad that they can't go in. This is not going to happen. This is no way we can enter into the land of Israel. Our dreams, we left Egypt, and all that we were thinking of is that God will take us into the land of Israel. Now we see it's not possible. There's no way we could do this. They start crying, and Hashem gets angry. He says, what is this? What type of sin? You don't believe in my capability to take them into the land of Israel. And he gives them this punishment that they won't. You don't want to go in. You won't go in. And they believe, and they remain in the desert for 40 years. It was actually a 39 additional years because they were already in the desert for a year. So they were there 40 years in total, and they actually did not go into the land of Israel, which is a very harsh decree, right? To basically die in the Midbar, die in the desert. So over 40 years, all those who turned 60 every year around Tisha B'Av, they would die, they would pass away. And then after 40 years, it was a new generation. It was the ones who were children. After Exodus and their children, right? It's the next generation. Those who were born in the Midbar, they were the ones who did enter the land of Israel. That's the story in short. That's the story in short. But like we asked, what exactly did they do wrong? You can't believe or trust every news report, right? And in regards to Israel and October 7th, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of investigation. Exactly where did the failure happen with Israel's intelligence? What did Israel know? What did they not know? What did they take seriously? What did they ignore? Who's at fault? Right? There's investigations going on all the time. I mean, I just read this recently, maybe like a week or two ago. And again, I don't know how true this is and how accurate this is, that evidently there was some type of report that came like 2 weeks before October 7th that basically was like a report, some type of a document from Hamas, which basically wrote out a plan of how to infiltrate Israel, break the wall, come into southern Israeli towns, and to take 150 to 200 hostages. That was their plan. Pretty much what they did, what unfortunately actually happened. And evidently, Israel got a hold of this, and someone from the intelligence brought this to Israel and showed it to whoever they showed it to. And seemingly, at least what the report says, is that it was ignored. It was ignored, and obviously we know what happened. So we obviously don't want to ignore intelligence. You find something out, your spies, your secret agents, right? They're out there in the field to gather information. And what are they supposed to do with the information? They're supposed to report it, right? What good is the information if you don't report it to the right people? So seemingly, these spies were sent with a mission. What was the mission? The mission was scout out the land, right? And go see what's going on in Israel, in Canaan, and come back with a report. And what did they do? They did exactly that. They went, they scouted out the land, they came back with a report. What do you want from them? Want them to lie? They lied?
Caleb said, and I don't understand the word, but he said,
So you're against something. So conquerable is not a report. That's already an opinion. Question is, do they veer away? Do they stick to the report? Do they start giving their own opinions? Right? That's already that's the question. That's the question. But seemingly, if you read the verses simply, it seems like they came back with a report. Maybe it wasn't the report you were hoping to hear, but that's the report. Okay, what do you want them to do, right? I want to read inside a few verses. We're going to jump around a little bit, but look at starting with verse 17 on page 943. Verse 17. Vayishlach Isa Moshe lasur es eretz Canaan. Moshe sent them to explore the land of Canaan. And what did he tell them? Alu ze banegev va'alisem esahar. He said, go up this way along the south border until you reach the sea, and then go up to the west coast until you reach the place called Hamas, which is by the mountain. Uri mahi, and go and see what type of land this is. And the people, the nation that is sitting, dwelling on it. Are they strong? Harafa, or are they weak? Hama'at, are they few? Imrav, or are they many? And what type of land is it? Is it a good land? Is it a bad land? What type of city is it? Are they living in fortified cities or in open cities? What type of trees do they have? What type of fruit do they have? Right. This is a very simply a detailed instruction of what to look out for. And then if you jump ahead to verse 27, next page, page 945. In verse 27, what's their report? They returned. They reported to Moshe and they said, Banu el haaretz asher shalachtam. We came to the land to which you sent us. V'gam zavas cholav udvashi. It's a land that's flowing with milk and honey. V'zeh pirion. This is the fruit. Ephes ki aza'am. However, the people who live on the land are extraordinary, powerful. V'ha'arim, and the cities v'tzures gedoles me'oid are huge and well fortified. And even we even saw the children of the giants there. Okay. Seemingly, did they add anything? They just exactly what you asked me to say. This is what we saw. You asked, are they fortified city or they're not fortified city? What, should I lie? I should tell them that they're not fortified. They're huge cities and they're fortified. You asked about the people, there are giants over there. And then they start specifying which nations are sitting in which sections of regions in Israel. You have the Amalek, who are living in the south. You have the Chiti and the Yevusi and the Amorites. They're living on the mountains. The Knani are near the water, near the coast, and near the Jordan River. Okay, right? That's seemingly what a good spy, someone who went to scout out the land, should report. Just the facts on the ground. And right away, we are told, what's the next verse? Vayahas Kalev Esa'am al Moshe. Caleb, right? One of the 12, him and Yehoshua were the ones who stayed true to Moshe, and he had to calm everyone down. Vayahas, he had to shush everyone. Everyone calmed down. And evidently, what's unwritten, what happened was everyone heard this report and they all went crazy. They all went wild. What is this? Can't do this. And Caleb says, no. We could do it. Oh, we could go up. So we will inherit the land. We could do it. Hashem could do it. And here's we have what the other people responded. The Ha'anashim, Asher Elohim Amru, and the other men that went with Caleb said, we are not able to ascend, to go up and fight this nation, because they are stronger than us. And Rashi says that they were actually saying they were stronger than him, than God. Even God can't do this. We can't do this, right? So now already seems like we're giving it an opinion. I want to jump. If you have a Chumash that has all of the 5 books, in the book of Deuteronomy, the book of Devarim, this is fast forwarding 40 years. If you jump to page 1177, the book of Devarim, the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 9. Page 1177. So we're talking now 40 years later. It's a new generation. We've already been through 40 years of the desert. Now it's finally the time. Yes, we are going to enter into the land of Israel now. And we know that it's Moshe's last days. Moshe himself was decreed that he will not enter the land of Israel. He will remain with his generation. He will remain with the generation of the desert. And he too will pass away before they enter the land. Joshua will take them in. But Moshe, before he dies, he gives words of encouragement and guidance to his people, to the Jewish people. And here he talks about the attitude that we have to have before going into the land of Israel. But if you read the first few verses, you may feel like, wait, he's almost doing the exact same thing that the spies did. What's he saying? Let's read this inside. Start from verse 1, chapter 9. Shema Yisrael. He begins with the famous words, Hear, O Israel. You today, you are about to cross the Jordan River. You're going from the east to the west. And where are you going into? Into the land of Israel. And when you're going to Lavoi, Lareshes, Goyim, you're going to go and inherit nations, Gedolim, great nations, Va'atsumim, and strong nations. And they're so strong, they're stronger than you. And Rashi says, although you are strong, these nations are even stronger. These are great, strong nations. Orim Gedoles Uvetulis B'Shamayim. These are very large cities, huge cities, fortified cities. Fortified till the heaven, right? Not literally, but tall walls, strong walls. It ain't easy. Am Godel, a big nation, Varam, and tall nation, Bnei Anokim, the children of giants, Asher Ata Yadata V'Ata Shemata, whom you know and whom you have heard. It said, Mi Yisyatzev Lifnei Bnei Anok. Who can stand against the children of giants? Stop there. If you read these two verses, it's almost like he took his speech from the spies. It's almost identical. What you went Meshuggah about, when you went crazy, when the spies came back and started giving us the facts on the ground, suddenly, hey, they were saying the truth. You're repeating it, the same thing. Fortified cities, strong nations, children of giants. Moshe, what happened? Then you got upset. Now you're repeating it. So Nachmanides, I mentioned him last week, but Moses ben Nachman, the Spanish rabbi from the 12th century, who was one of the leading commentators on the Chumash, he's actually also famous for his debates. He used to have, in his time, unfortunately, Christianity was really strong, and it was very difficult for Jewish people to practice their religion without debating. They always had these debates on religion, Christianity, Judaism, and Nachmanides was famous for his debates. He would debate these priests, and there's actually books, or a book that was written with all his debates. Interesting. But he wrote a commentary on the Chumash, and so it's pretty much printed in any Chumash that you buy with additional commentaries, besides for Rashi, you have the Ramban, not to get confused with Maimonides, the Rambam, Moshe ben Maimon. This is Moshe ben Nachman, lived about 100 years later, if I understand correctly. So Nachmanides, he asks this exact question. He says, the spies, Moshe gets so angry, God gets so angry. But look at Moshe himself. 40 years later, he's saying the same thing. Now, what's the difference? What's the difference? The difference is, what's the continuation? What does Moshe say next? And what do the spies say next? Right?
We can come to the
It's the
go before us.
right. The difference is you have to stick to your mission. What is your job? Your job is to report the facts. We don't need your opinion. We're not asking you whether we could or we can't. All we're asking you is how. In other words, God wanted or agreed to allow to send spies because ultimately, although God was on our side, God wanted us to strategize, to use the tools of nature, try to figure out what makes most sense, where to start the war, what's the strategy, where were we fighting first, where we right, coming up this way, coming up that way, how it should be done, the strategy of how to conquer the country, but not if. That wasn't the question. The question wasn't if, the question was how. So when they come and they give it a report, then they say, and our conclusion is that based on this, it's not possible. Whoa, it's out of line. It's not what we asked you. What does Moshe continue? Moshe continues in verse 3. You should know today that God, your God, He is the one who is passing through before you in this land. He's a consuming fire. He will destroy them. He will subjugate them before you. You will evict them and destroy them quickly, just as God has said. In other words, that's the conclusion. Don't take credit, Moshe is saying. Don't think, oh, we're so strong, we're so smart, we're able to figure this out. We can do it. It wasn't even a question whether we could do it or not. The question is, who takes the credit? That was Moshe's pep talk. Moshe was trying to tell them, they're stronger than you. Don't fool yourself. Don't convince yourself that you have the ability to fight. You don't have the ability to fight. You know who does? Hashem does. And Hashem is on your side. Hashem is going before you. So if you believe in that, then you'll be successful. And like he continues, don't take credit. Because the moment you take credit, it's not going to be successful. In history, there was this man who lived about 50 years after the destruction of the Second Temple. They called him Bar Kokhba, or Ben Kuziva, different names for him. He was a Jewish king, a general in the army, who was fighting the Romans. When the Romans came and they destroyed the temple, he fought back. And you know what? For a while, he was successful. He was winning the battles. And for a while, I think they even chased the Romans out of Jerusalem. If I remember correctly, there were about 50 years, maybe 40 years, they were able to hold the line. And he was a righteous person. And he was successful at his wars. So much so that even the great sage Rabbi Akiva believed in him to be the Messiah. He says, you know, the temple was destroyed. The second temple was destroyed. But it may be rebuilt, right? The first temple was destroyed, and 70 years later, they built the second temple. The second temple was destroyed. This is like 50 years or so, give or take, after that. And they're fighting battles. They're being successful. Who knows? This may be the start of the return to Jerusalem. Maybe soon we'll bring the Jews back from exile. They were in Babylonia at the time. Rabbi Akiva believed in him. And he was winning battle after battle. But then suddenly, things turned. And he started losing battles. And eventually he was killed in one of the battles. And what happened? So we're told that what happened was he started taking credit. He started feeling, you know what? I'm pretty good at this. I learned the strategies. I learned the Romans. I know their methods. I know their equipment. I know their strategy. I'm smarter. I can outsmart them. We're stronger. We're smarter. We have better. And because of that, he started feeling, you know what? I'm good at this. He started taking credit. And the moment he started taking credit, that's it. Because ultimately, it wasn't him. It was always God that was with him. But the moment you forget about that, you forget about God being on your side, oh, We don't know what's going to happen. So that was Moshe's talk. Moshe was telling them, remember, they're stronger than you. What you have, your strength, is your trust in God. That's your strength. That's what they don't have. And that's something that no one can take away from you, and that will bring the success. The moment you forget about that, you don't want to go there. And that is what the spies were missing from the get-go. And they came back and they gave the report, an honest report, which is okay. Moshe gave an honest report as well. This is the facts on the ground. But what should the conclusion be? The conclusion is, it must be, we can't even take any credit. God is going to be the one doing it for us. Let's not fool ourselves. Like Joshua, Yehoshua, and Caleb. What was their conclusion? We'll do it. This is the facts on the ground. We'll go ahead with it. God is with us. The other 10, unfortunately, came to a different conclusion. They said, no, we can't do it. Even God can't figure this one out. For that, they were punished. When God talks about the punishment, he mentions something very, very interesting. If we jump to verse 22 on page 953. After he forgives the Jewish people, which the forgiveness still came with a punishment. But the punishment was that they'll remain in the desert for 40 years. Verse 22. I swear that all the people who, while seeing my glory and the miraculous signs that I performed in the Egypt and the desert, right? These were the same people. This is the nation. These are the generation. The people who actually witnessed all the miracles of the Exodus of Egypt, splitting of the sea, the 10 plagues, all that. They have witnessed this with their own eyes. And now they have tested me, Eser Pa'amim, 10 times. They have tested me and did not listen to my voice. They will not see the land that I swore to their fathers. All those who provoked me will not see it. However, Caleb, he will see it. And Caleb and Yeshua, they were the ones who were able to go into the land of Israel. What is this 10 times? They have tested me 10 times. So Rashi says something interesting. Rashi says from the Talmud that he lists the 10 times that the Jewish people complained. You see this actually in classic questions. It's actually enumerated, where it says on the right side, what were the 10 times that God has tested, that God was tested? So Rashi says, twice at the sea, twice with the manna, twice with the quails, etc. As is stated in the Talmud, Tractate Gareth. So what is all these things? If you read the story, we know that the Jewish people were always complaining. For example, twice at the sea. When they came to the sea, this is just a few days after the Exodus of Egypt. I don't know. I feel like if I was there, after witnessing all God's miracles, 10 plagues, Exodus of Egypt. Okay, we're at the sea. What did I think? But now God can't figure this one out. No, we're complaining. Why are we here? Why did we leave Egypt? Look at this. The Egyptians are behind us. The water is in front of us. We're going to die. This is terrible. Moshe, why did you take us out? Right? Complaining. Okay. God says we're splitting the sea. The miracle of the splitting. I mean, mind-boggling. The sea was split. You went through the water on dry land. I mean, the godly revelation that was there, the miraculous salvation. I mean, okay, we're in the seventh heaven. What happens? We come to the other side. And we complain again. What are we complaining? Well, if we were saved, the Egyptians probably were also saved. Who said they're not chasing us still? Really? You have to find something to complain about. So then what did Hashem do? Hashem had to make the water spit out the Egyptians to say, look, look, they died. You're happy now? Okay, we're happy. So we tested twice at the sea. Then with the manna from heaven, for God's sakes, right? You come out of your tent, you have food all over, just for you, everything you want. You don't have to go to the store, you don't have to go to Costco, you don't have to go make it. Nothing. It's everything is there. It tastes like heaven. No, we find what to complain about. What do we complain about? There was a measurement. So there's a measurement. Don't take more than this measurement. No, we had to test it. You know what? We are going to take more. And we're going to leave it to the next day, even though you're supposed to keep it for each day on its own. We got to test it. Okay. God says on Fridays, take double portion because on Shabbos, it's not going to fall. Shabbos morning, let's go for a walk. Maybe the manna fell. Why? So, manna from heaven, be happy. No, we're always testing Hashem. And on and on and on, right? Always a test. We don't have meat. We don't have enough food. We don't have any water, right? Always something. 10 times. The Rebbe points out something very interesting. He says each of these 10 times, what was the testing? What was the complaining to Hashem? It was in the midst of a miracle. While God was performing these great miracles, that's when we're complaining, or that's when we're testing. It's mind-boggling. God just took you out of Egypt. No, we're complaining about the water. We just experienced the splitting of the sea. No, we're complaining. Manna from heaven, that miraculous. No, we're complaining. Within the miracles, that's when we're finding reasons to complain. And that's why Hashem got so angry with them. They got angry because Hashem is saying, I'm showing you my hand. I'm revealing my presence to you. I'm holding your hand. I'm here with you in a revealed way. I'm not hiding. And you're still complaining. You're still complaining. So when it came to this complaint of the spies, Hashem said, you know what? Enough is enough. It's 10 times already. 10 times that while I'm revealing myself, you're still saying, well, is God with us? Is God here with us? After all this time going to Israel, you're living a miraculous life. You're still complaining and say, well, is God able to do this? Is God with us? So Hashem says, you know what? This is already something I can't handle. You're not going into Israel. The next generation, they'll be able to go in. And Moshe has to tell them, clearly, you're going in. Don't make the same mistake. Don't think that, they're so mighty and we can't do it. Or we are so mighty and therefore we can do it. It's not about your might. It's not about their might. Hashem is with you. That's why you'll be successful. Keep that in mind. Hashem is holding your hand. Hashem is walking before you. He is bringing that success. That's why you have to drill into them. This is how we should see it. And of course, it's not only about the spies going into Israel. It's about each and every one of us on a daily basis. I would say it's also about Israel, the current modern state of Israel. When they're fighting wars, we are 100% not just justified, but obligatory. But they also have to have that. And perhaps maybe they're missing it a little bit on a political, on a governmental level, where yes, we have a mighty army, we have strategies, and we have equipment, and we're mighty and we're smart, but we can't forget who's really fighting the war. We always have to remember Hashem is fighting with us, and with that we have success. But on a personal level as well, sometimes we feel like complaining to Hashem. Justified, we could complain. Who doesn't complain? We have to remember Hashem is with us. And sometimes we complain, then we take a step back and we look at the bigger picture and say, you know what? How foolish was that complaint? Hashem was revealing himself to me at that moment, and all I wanted was more. I didn't see it, so I was complaining. If we take a step back and we think about our life, we'll see how God is with us. So many things in our life where we take for granted, where we realize, you know what? Other people don't have it. I didn't have it a year ago, right? And you know what? This is Hashem's gift to me. I have to thank him. Recently, I was speaking to someone who I met recently, and he tells me that he was incarcerated for like 5 years, more than once. So in total, he was incarcerated numerous times in his life. Thank God, I think he made a major shift and change in his life, but he was involved in areas and things that he shouldn't have been for a large percentage of his youth, and he was behind bars for quite a bit of it. And now, thank God, he has a family, he has a job, and he's living a good life. And he tells me, you don't understand. When I wake up in the morning, I'm able to take my dog out for a walk. I so appreciate that. Because for so many years, I did not have the ability to do so. When I could just get up and go to the store, I can go to work, I can make money, I can come home, I can spend time with my family. I so appreciate every moment of that because I didn't have that for many years. We wake up in the morning, we say, Moda Ani, thank you, Hashem, for life. We thank Hashem for health. We thank Hashem for our family. We thank Hashem for our house. We thank Hashem for we have a job. Thank Hashem for all that we have in our life. We can't take this for granted. Basics. But then there's obviously more than that. Each and every one of us, we take a moment to think about what we have in our life. Sometimes we look at others and we say, you know what, they don't have it. We do have it. Thank God for that. God is holding our hand. It's a miracle. And you take this a step further as well. There's a woman, I'll conclude with this, who wrote a letter to the Rebbe. And the Rebbe would write, thousands of letters. There's a set of the Rebbe's original letters in Hebrew. They also have letters in English. The Hebrew letters, which most of his letters were written in Hebrew or Yiddish, I think they already have 39 or maybe 40 volumes. There are thousands and thousands of letters, and this is just one that they published. There's thousands of more. I don't know if there's a number of how many letters the Rebbe wrote, and many of them are very interesting to read, just guidance in different areas of life. But more often than not, you don't know what the letter was in response to, because you only see the Rebbe's letter. You don't see what the letter that the person wrote to the Rebbe. But sometimes the Rebbe will say, in response to your letter that you wrote, and kind of give a little either a synopsis or a quote from their letter, and he responds. So you got to understand a little bit of what the question that the letter is responding was. So there was a woman seemingly living overseas that was complaining to the Rebbe that she doesn't see any miracles. She doesn't see God's hand in her life. And she was saying something about she doesn't really believe in miracles. She's not sure if she believes that God performs miracles. So the Rebbe writes a letter back to her. You have to believe that God performs miracles, a whole, long letter. Then the Rebbe says, if you take a moment and think back in your own life, you will see clearly that God performed miracles for you. And the Rebbe adds, the mere fact that a rabbi that you never met, who is sitting overseas, is writing to you and telling you that God performed miracles for you, that itself is a miracle. So I think the message is that let's not make the same mistakes of the mistake of the spies. We realize that God is with us, holding our hand every moment, and we should recognize that. And sometimes, while God is holding our hand, we're denying it. Right? Rashi brings an example of a father who is walking through the desert, through the forest, and places the young child on their shoulders. Because it's difficult to walk in the desert or in the forest. There's some animal, there's this, that, whatever, all these things, twigs and holes and potholes and that, whatever. And as the child is walking and meeting people, going through this forest, the child asks, tell me, have you seen my father anywhere? Do you know where my father is? Fool, you think it's so easy to walk through the desert? You're only able to walk through the desert, through the forest, because you're on their shoulders. You don't see him, but he's holding you. Sometimes while God is holding us, God performed these miracles, we're saying, where's God? God, I need to see you. I need more. It's not good enough. We shouldn't make that mistake. We realize that God is holding our hands. We should recognize that every moment. And I think our lives will look a little different if we did that. So I'll leave you with that. Thank you for joining us this morning. Have a Shavua Tov. And hope to see you next week.
Shavua Tov. Thank you, Rabbi. It was wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mendel.
Thank you.